Hello everyone, welcome to you all. Uh, Welcome to you all. I'm really glad to have you all here. I'm your moderator for today's event, and we'll start the event with my introduction and the introduction of my co-moderator. I'm a 17 years old uh, child rights activist, and I'm working as a peer mentor with the COVID under 19. With me, the event will be leading by co-moderated by Ms. Reluka. So she gonna provide me the support in the event. And before we start that, uh, I would love to uh, uh, give you all the background and the theme of this event. So basically, our whole event is of today's day, but it is divided into three different sessions, and I will be leading the fourth session, which is an interactive session. We will have our guest speakers and panelists. Uh, Videos will be presented, interviews videos, uh, discussing on different topics, and after that there will be live conversation and Q&A session for you all. So you all can send your questions to us using the QA options to get answers. And with that, on that note, I will uh, share the theme of a Universal Children Day, which in order to which we are conducting this session today. So the theme of this year's Universal Children Day is reimagining a better world for every child. So basically, it is in order to think for a world and make the world more child friendlier, better future for the children after the pandemic. On this regard, I will hand over to Ms. Christian to share with you some safeguarding policies and housekeeping rules.
Thank you so much, Ali. And just to echo, welcome everyone to our first session of a day of festivities to celebrate International Children's Day. We're so thrilled to have you with us. My name is Kristen. I work with Terre des Hommes, and we're one of the organizations who's been one of the partners, the great group of partners bringing COVID under 19 to you today. Just a few things before we get started. It's so important for us to all be safe here together. For that reason, we have put in place a safeguarding policy and a code of conduct. So I'm going to put that in the chat box here for you. And we would really appreciate if everybody takes a look at this code of conduct and respects the different behaviors that we are requesting. And namely, that's really to refrain from any behavior that could make anybody feel unsafe or that could hurt anyone's well-being. And so we, as the organizers of the webinar, will, if we see anything that is of concern to us, we will reserve the right to remove everyone from the webinar in case we have any doubts about the safeguarding and well-being of all the children and young people who are gathered with us today. So that is about safeguarding. If you have any concerns, we have safeguarding team on standby, myself, we have Moses here. We will put our contact details in the chat box. If you have any concerns about your well-being or anybody else's well-being, please let us know. The other thing in terms of housekeeping is that we have live caption available. You can enable the closed captioning by clicking that option in the bottom of the screen. For this session, we do not have translation. We will have translation for later sessions in the day. The session is being recorded today, and it's also being live streamed to Facebook. So that's everything from me. And with that, I turn back to our brilliant moderators, Ali and Raluca. Over to you.
Thanks, Christian, for sharing this important guidelines with all of the viewers and panelists so that they can feel safe and protected in this space with us, and also can, in order to celebrate this great day with us collectively, because this event is meant to celebrate the Universal Children Day collectively. And the best thing about this is that children have their right to speak, and they have their right to participation, which will share. Now, moving on, before I proceed to something else, I will share today's agenda with everyone, which is that the event started with introduction and safeguarding, which has already been done. Now, from that, we will move on according to the agenda to the welcome remarks from our guest speaker, which I will introduce later to you. And after that, we will segment by segment move to our videos. After viewing the video clips and short interviews of our great experts and child participants, peer mentors. After that, we will move on to a Q&A session. After the Q&A session, we will have our last remarks from our panelists. And with that, there will be uh, closing words and launching of digital library. So with this regard, I will move on to our guest speaker for their opening remarks. But before that, I should introduce her. So it's our guest speaker for today is Jennifer Davidson. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. And her short intro with us is that uh, Professor Jennifer Davidson is the executive director of the Institute for Inspiring Children Future, and it's inspiring children's future doctoral research center. She has contributed to embedding children's human rights into the delivery of the UN Sustainable Development Goal as a project director of Access to Justice project, Justice for Children, Justice for All Global Initiative, or driving the implementation of the UN guidelines for alternative care of children as project director for moving forward, implementing the UN guidelines, hangout books, and in establishing the Observatory of Child Human Rights in Scotland. Now it's over to you, Miss Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Ali. That was a big mouthful of an introduction. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and happy Children's Day and Children's Day Festival to all of you. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I think it's a really special day that we have. It's a chance for us to be reinforcing the importance of children's rights, and especially at this time while we're all working so hard to be building back from or managing within the context of COVID, to be doing that with thinking really carefully about how we're keeping children more in the center of the decisions that we're making, even than we were doing before the pandemic. And it's a great opportunity today, I think, for us to engage with new friends and new allies. And so I'm really enthusiastically welcoming you on behalf of the entire event, but also then particularly the COVID under 19 project with which I've been associated for a little while. I was thinking about this idea of International Children's Day, and you know, these international days are so much are often to be valuing something distinct. You know, whether it's Mother's Day or Father's Day, it's the distinctiveness. And I thought it was quite funny that, you know, every human being on the planet has been a child, and so I think we are honoring Children's Day because it's easy for adults to forget the full range of what it means to be a child. And so I'm delighted that we're celebrating International Children's Day today, because I think, you know, as in the wider world, I think sometimes we think about children as being, we become quite sentimental as we think about children. As we're further away from being a child, we think about sort of the innocence and joyfulness and playfulness, and we sort of forget that children have influence and power and wisdom and insight. And you know, in the climate crisis and the voice of children that has emerged there and in many other places, we're reminded of all of that power and influence and wisdom and insight. And so for me today, International Children's Day is a reminder to us of that full range of what children, who children are, and what they bring. And in celebrating International Children's Day, it's I think it's an act of solidarity with children and reminding us that children as active participants in the world, which they are and ought to be encouraged to be more, is a way of our effort to sort of hold the ground that we've gained around children's rights and the place of children being active participants. And so because I think it's really important, because during COVID we've seen that during the context of a whole range of people's rights being compromised for various good reasons sometimes and not so good in the context of COVID, we can see how quickly we can lose the focus on children. And so this feels like a really important International Children's Day for us to celebrate. I think that the intergenerational partnerships are an important way to demonstrate that solidarity, and that role of facilitating intergenerational partnerships that the COVID Under-19 project, for example, has facilitated so beautifully, is an example of the kind of role that adults play as allies in using their influence and their power to create more spaces and bigger spaces for children to contribute, to offer their views, to give their influence, not just as a channel where we have a back and forth where we say, right, I'm an adult, I want to hear what a child says, and then they hear what a child says and they go away and maybe they'll do something about it and maybe they won't. Instead, I think what we're talking about here, and what this is as an event today, is an intergenerational dialogue where it's an ongoing conversation between adults as allies and children as active participants in their world. And one example that I was asked to share with you is just a small example of this idea of an intergenerational dialogue. During the COVID crisis, I have led a project called the COVID 4P log, which is a smartphone app project where we used a smartphone app to collect the views of practitioners and policymakers around different countries in the world to find out what they were seeing in relation to children's experiences, because we wanted to understand what was happening for children from lots of different angles. And children and young people developed some of those questions with us. The findings from the COVID Under-19 project, that survey, informed the questions as well. The questions were then put to adults, the practitioners and policymakers, and then adults and children from the COVID Under-19 project analyzed those findings. Those findings are now being taken forward and put into a publication so that when we share the findings with the adults about what practitioners and policymakers have said, we're also sharing and amplifying the views of what children and young people have said, so that we're trying to find every mechanism to listen and to facilitate a dialogue, and then to amplify and make sure that children's voices are much more centered at the center of the thinking and the conversations that are going on around the world. And that's just a tiny example of what the COVID 4P log and the COVID Under-19 project are developing together with many, some of you on this very screen and in this event. And to close, what I'd like to reflect on is, if celebrating International Children's Day is an act of solidarity, it's even more so important that we do so in relation to children who are in contact with the justice system, because I'm wanting to remind us that those who are in contact with the law, who are facing the greatest disadvantages, the greatest adversities around the world, these are the children who are most likely to have their rights breached. And all the more important must we be seeking out the ways in which we can engage with those children and young people and the adults who have influence in those systems and in the decisions in their lives, to ensure that that those children's voices are informing the decisions being made about them. And so in all of that, let me just say how exciting it is to celebrate as an act of solidarity International Children's Day, as we recognize the very active place of children in our world today. And I wish everyone a fantastic festival.
Thank you, Ms. Jennifer, for giving us your time and sharing your beautiful insights and your views. Now, from here, I will move on to the first segment of our today's event, which is a video interview between our peer mentor, child advisor, and our expert. The video is basically based on uh, the role of child participation and access to justice, but it is in the light of the pandemic and in order to ensure the protection or the rights of children uh, in light of the pandemic. So for this interview, we had the three group of three people, which were great, and I would like to introduce them. After that, the video will be played. So first of all, we had Janoka, my colleague and my friend, who is also a peer mentor from Nepal. She is one of the peer mentors who have been involved in the COVID under 19 project. She is child rights activist from Nepal and a facilitator for child friendly local government and is currently also working as a provincial vice president of Nepal Youth Network for SDGs. Alongside her, we had the expert Vijay Ratnam Raman, yeah, who is a passionate about achieving justice for all people as a qualified lawyer with significant public policy experience from UNICEF and USAID. Uh, he works to deliver successful strategic policies which secure access to justice for everyone and children in particular. During his mandate in Hanoi, Vietnam, he played a central role in leading UNICEF campaigns to implement the country's first specialized children's court and improve the lives of approximately 75,000 children annually. Uh, uh, with that, we also had the host who asked the question, who is Tin, a child rights activist from Bosnia. He is 13 years old. He has recently become a children advisor in the COVID under 19 project. Now over to Ms. Christian to present the video clip to our viewers.
Just bear with me. Sorry, maybe as I'm just preparing it, maybe Tin and Januka, are you able to welcome everyone here? How do you feel being here today?
Hello everyone, Namaste from Nepal. I'm Januka, a child rights activist working in Nepal, and I'm a peer mentor of COVID under 19 initiative. Firstly, I would like to welcome all of you to our COVID under 19 Child Rights Festival, which is being celebrated on the occasion of World Children's Day. And happy World Children's Day to everyone. Thank you.
Yes, also, hi everyone. My name is Azali Hazid. I'm Tin Banner Barsik. I'm a child advisor on this project. I'd also like to welcome you to the program today. The interview that you are about to see was done with Mr. Vijaya from UNICEF, and it also speaks about juvenile justice and what UNICEF and the world needs to do in the following period to improve child equality and child equality in front of courts and justice globally. So I hope you enjoy our interview as much as we did filming it. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you both. And without further ado, I would like to share the first segment of the video, which is here.
So let's get on to the first question. First question will be for Mr. Savija. What would be the difference in the UNICEF programs which children could always decide about when programs are decided? So if child participation was brought to another level, how would it make a difference to most UNICEF programs?
Great question, Tim. So Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child is very dear to UNICEF's heart. And that's the article that talks about children being able to express their views and having those views taken into account. And so we as an organization are really looking at how we put that principle into place across the whole organization. So as you say, in our programming, but also in our operations across the whole organization. Certainly during COVID and before COVID, we witnessed the power of children and young people demanding justice, racial justice, gender justice, climate justice, political and social justice, and impacting change across the world. And that really deeply caught our attention at UNICEF. So as part of our new justice strategy, we have really looked at how do we increase children and young people's participation and involvement in our justice programming across the world. And particularly when it comes to justice, we're paying special attention to groups of children who are overrepresented in the justice system, and children and young people with lived experiences of the justice system, because often they're excluded, right? They're marginalized and their voices aren't heard. So for us,
I hope you guys enjoyed what he said. Just a bit of explanation in order to that. Article 12 is basically that right for participation for the children. So he talked on the importance of child participation, and he encouraged the role of child participation in justice and every aspect. We should not forget that children are the part of this community, so they have the right to be heard, and we can't ignore them. They should raise their voices. Before proceeding, that we also have the second clip of this interview, which is presented by Ms. Januka, who answered different questions with a different point of view, but similarly still the questions remains same, that how to ensure the child participation. And if the video is ready, please can we share it?
Yes, it's ready. And I'm
Please,
so keen to have also Januka and Tin here to share with us how they felt after watching this clip, making this video. So here's the second clip.
So thank you for your question, Tin. And so firstly, what I would say about the impacts of COVID-19, Firstly, what I would say about the impacts of COVID-19 on the lives of children is the lives of vulnerable groups of children are affected the most by the pandemic, and moreover, economically deprived and underprivileged children are being pushed towards the worst situation. And COVID pandemic has affected the access to proper nutrition and good health, challenging the rights of good health and well-being. And the situation has also increased in child-related violence, it is related to either child marriage or labor or sexual exploitation of children. it has been rapidly increased during the pandemic. And similarly, the disruption to children's school life has created a great challenge, and it has exacerbated the learning crisis. And the transformation of education to the virtual world seems to result in an increase in online violence, cybercrime, and school dropout rates as well. And not only this, this situation of COVID crisis has badly affected the lives of children by isolating them and resulting to depression, anxiety, and distancing them from society, being alone. And they face a lot of physical and mental traumas. And what I think is we adults should be responsible for addressing their rights by hearing them. We should address their problems and we should listen to them actually. And I think we should work for the protection of child rights during this pandemic, especially because this is the time where child rights have been badly affected than the other time.
Well, that was great from our three of partners. Now I will open the platform to Tin and Januka if they want to add further something to it, or if they desire to express their emotions or thinking that what they were thinking or what was their emotions during the interview. But before that, I would like to make an announcement for you all that these were just short clips from the interview. If you want to full see the full interview, it will be made available for you onwards on YouTube and further social media accounts of COVID under 19. So you can access it to them later on. Now the floor is your both to you.
So yeah, I don't want to add more, but thank you for the opportunity, Ali. So while recording the interview with Vijay from UNICEF, who is based in Australia, and with the child advisor of COVID under 19 team, it was a fantastic experience as getting to know a specialist in justice who is working with UNICEF and who is experienced in the field of child rights for over more than 20 years. It was such a great experience. And I guess this today's event is also a great experience for all those who have joined us. And yeah, thank you so much for this great opportunity.
As well, to agree with Januka, it was a lot of experience filming the interview. It was really interesting to see how, and the same things, the adults have a different opinion than us, but we all can find a common ground on what are the biggest priorities, both for us children and both for the adults who are making big changes and who are actually listening to us, and especially in a field such important as child justice and equality and representation. And I hope that you can all see that when the interview is in its full capacity uploaded, so that you can see the entire conversation and how it was really like, and the plans that the world and especially UNICEF has on these really big and important changes that everybody recognizes to be made. So yes, thank you, Ali and Januka, for.
Okay, so moving on, we have the second segment ready by now. But before that, I will just remind it again to the viewers that they can send their interesting questions by using the option of Q&A, and they can mention that which of the panelists or experts they are asking the question to, and their questions will be facilitated later on. So now moving to the segment 2, we have another video clips in 2 parts in the same manner, but this time the topic we are having is different. The topic we are having is child participation in budgeting process. This interview was conducted by our, again, two most talented and hardworking friends. Number first one was our peer mentor, Mr. Amit. Again, he is from Nepal and he is working as a child rights activist. Alongside him, the interview was conducted by Zarmala, our peer, our child advisor, and the expert they had was Shamela Kaslam from South Africa. But before we proceed to the video clip, I will share a brief intro of all of the three with you, which is that Shamela is an experienced specialist. Uh, Sorry for the interruption. Shamala is an experienced specialist with a demonstrated history of working in public policy, human rights, human rights, public finance, monitoring, plus advocacy, strong professional skills, and non-profiting organization. So it's a great honor for us to have her as the field of expertise for her is budgeting and financing, while alongside her, the peer mentor of us was Mr. Amrit, who has been a chairman and convener at the Nepal Youth Network for Sustainable Development District Committee and president of Hamaro Awaz Basel Sanjal Child Club Network. He is also known for his work as a facilitator for child-friendly local government, in short CFLG. With that, we had our child advisor Zarmala, who has joined the COVID under 19 initiative just recently, and we are enjoying her work. Now let's see, do you enjoy her video? So again, Christian, it's over to you for the video.
So now, for my next question, this is for Shamila. So what is the benefit of child participation in budgeting and the decision-making process, specifically for the children, for the decision maker, for the process itself, and in general for the society?
Thank you. I believe that children are agents of change. Children are the future and they are the present. They have the ability and the capabilities to influence how services are delivered for children's rights and ultimately affect their daily lives, in education, in health, in social development, and similar. The idea that we as adults must prepare children for the future only is short-sighted. We have seen that children are interested in influencing what government does for them and their communities. We just heard from Amrit, a great example from Nepal. And I would say that there are three benefits, three distinct benefits. First, through children's participation, and they're participating in discussions about budgets and other policies, like policies on education, like policies on health, for example, vaccinations for children. Children can change the communities they live in for the better. For example, by participating in discussions about toilets at the schools in their communities, they can influence how much money is given to those schools, how those toilets are built, how they are maintained, and how they are serviced. Children can also influence the amount of money that is needed for those services. Mainly, once it is built, there needs to be money, but there also needs to be money for maintaining and servicing those toilets. Second, I believe that children can change budget systems. For example, they can change how budgeting is done at the local government level. So ensuring that children are included when the government or local government specifically plans their budget.
Well, thanks for giving us your important time and being with us, Shamala. I will just hand over to you if you want to add something further.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you for hosting me today. I just want to add that I think it's a very important topic, that is children participating in public budgeting, because children have the ability to, we've seen in different examples, Amrit spoke about it in the video, they have the ability to influence service delivery in their communities. I was also, just listening to Amrit, able to discern the active voices that children bring to the table, where decision makers have to listen to children. What's equally important is that while children are participating in budget making processes, that at the same time government officials are able to listen to the children who are contributing to this policy making decisions. That media are able to also engage with children who are influencing policies at that stage, for example, local government. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you. Uh, just being anxious, I have a question before the Q&A session, which I would love to be addressed right now. If you can I ask?
Yes.
The question from what I was thinking is that in what is the percentage of child budgeting insured in the worldwide? Has we seen any practice being held, or just it is a concept which is not practically used?
Mhm. That question is very useful in terms of understanding the success of children participating in public budgeting. So it really started out in Brazil, because Brazil many years ago, almost 2.5 decades ago, started public participation, and children's rights organization, including children themselves, pushed very hard for children to be included in those public participation policy-making processes. And so we see from Brazil, there have been examples. In South Africa, there have been examples. Amrit can speak very strongly about the work in Nepal. We've seen examples in countries like the UK, in Scotland and Wales. There are definitely examples, but they're also success stories that we can learn from in terms of how children can participate and be successful in their participation.
Oh, okay, thanks for answering my question. Now on, we have the second part of the video, which is addressed by Amrit. So here is it.
COVID pandemic.
Thank you for the question, such a wonderful question. Yeah, COVID-19 is a child-friendly platform that initiates to meaningfully involve children in response to COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, more than 26,000 children aged 8 to 17 from 137 countries participated in the COVID-19 survey to discuss about the life in the COVID pandemic, including the children from minority groups, underprivileged groups, asylums, migrants, refugees, children including disabilities, and identifying themselves as LGBTQI plus community. So COVID-19 is itself creating a great participation for not just the children who have the access, but for the children who are not in an accessible level. Along with this, to say specifically about me, what have I learned and how does my workspace gets benefited by COVID-19, I'm able to learn about different child participatory process that is relevant throughout the world. And I can implement that in my day-to-day life of activism. So that is one of the great achievements to me. Along with this, the both simultaneous learning and teaching process that I learned from COVID-19 is what I cherish the most. And I feel, yeah, COVID-19 is one of the outstanding and amazing platform that is working greatly to ensure meaningful child participation. Thank you.
Well, Amrit, really interesting inputs by you. Uh, we enjoyed it. But now it's over to you again if you want to enlighten something else which has been missed out or anything from you.
Thank you, Ali. So, yeah, very first is Happy World Children's Day to everyone. So, reimagining a better world for every child. That's the theme of this year's Children's Day. So, we hope to look forward in working this and contribute a lot to this. And nothing much. We just had a wonderful discussion in the interview. Shamila from South Africa, Jamala from Pakistan, and me myself from Nepal. We hope that we contributed a little to the topic of child participation in budgeting. Though the topic itself is very diverse, very huge in itself, it has a lot of challenges, it has a lot of issues in itself, but along with this, it has a lot of fruitfulness and a lot of things that's very useful, and that's in the progress. So yeah, nothing much. The topic child participation in budgeting is one of the very important and the needed topic in the discussions, and these topics are almost under down in the discussion like this, but COVID-19 took an initiation to bring this kind of discussion into a panel. So I'm very happy for it, and yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Welcome. Now, Zarmala, over to you for your thoughts on the significance of this specific interview and this specific topic, that how important this is, and what are your experiences or your wish according to it. Over to you.
Thank you, Ali. Now, entirely, this interview was very well done, and I learned quite a lot from it. As you may see in the interview, Amrit and Shamila, both of them made really great points according to this. And also, like, child participation in budgeting has been proven to be like quite a diverse subject, as Amrit said, and a lot has been taken to try to build this up in this world. So the interview was great, and I learned quite a lot from it. And if you guys can, you could watch the entire interview. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, on that note, we will be moving to our third segment, my favorite segment, because it is no more a video, it's an open panel discussion between two persons. One is our expert. First of all, I will introduce her, and after that we'll share the topic, and then the floor will be open for them. So the expert we have is Amehan Abewa, is the regional executive director of Child Rights Coalition Asia. She has been known internationally as a child rights advocate for past 20 years. She has contributed to the mainstreaming of concerns of child protection, especially to strengthening the national and international legal framework to ensure that children are protected from any form of violence, particularly trafficking and sexual exploitation. Just on a shorter note, and to tell the audience a bit of funny and bring entertainment to it, Miss Amehan Abewa is also known as our grandmother in 2019 First Asian Summit. So we can call her as our grandmother, especially me. And alongside that, we will have our child advisor, Sophie. He is a child and youth representative from Taiwan. She is 16 years old this year. She has recently become a child advisor in the COVID-19 project. And the theme of this segment, or the objective of this segment, is an open discussion on the need for practicing independent thinking in child participation and what does politics mean in child rights. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Ali. And hello, everyone. I'm Sophie from Taiwan. I'm a 16-year-old homeschool student who works as a child and young representative in Taiwan. And as Ali has mentioned before, I'm also one of the child advisor in the COVID-19 group. And today I have two questions to ask Ms. Amihan. And would you like to introduce yourself too?
Hello, good evening, Sophie. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. I'm so glad to see Ali and all our other friends, and of course, Christine and Jennifer and Sharmilas. I mean, it's been a long time since we saw each other. So I'm very happy to be with you tonight. And it's been interesting to listen to all the ideas that have been discussed tonight. So I'm really happy to be here. And yes, so I'm happy to hear your questions too, Sophie.
Okay, then I'll start it with asking the question and sharing a bit of my point of view. And the first question is, what are our expectations of child participation? My opinion to this topic is that throughout our childhood, we're often expected to not to have too many opinions of our own. However, once we grow up and become adults, usually that means when we have passed our 18th birthday, and we're immediately requested to form our opinions and have the ability to make sensible decisions. Still, without practicing like independent thinkings and making decision and being involved in the process of decision making, how are we supposed to how can we suddenly just like develop those skills and have those ability as we turn into adults? Can turning 18 really represent the maturity of the person? Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie, for asking that question. If you ask me, actually, a lot of people who are above 18 haven't fully matured either. So I think it's so important. That's why we have to discuss why the Convention on the Rights of the Child specifically has articles that will allow children, that provides for children to develop this kind of independent thinking. We have to remember that each person is different and we develop at different pace of, so that's why we have this principle of evolving capacity, which means that we have to develop. And this is why it's so important that from the very beginning we already recognize that children have a right to speak and voice their opinion. But aside from voicing their opinion, they also have to get feedback, and that's where we have to see whether their ideas have been taken into account. So that really begins at a very, very early age. They say actually that from infancy, it's the what they call the back and forth between the child who is babbling and the reaction of the parent or the caregiver that actually helps our brains to develop. So that's why the convention has all these articles that talk about the right to be able to give your opinions, the right to share ideas, and to also think and learn. It's also talks about children having their right to choose their own thoughts, their religions, their opinions. This is because you can't suddenly, not using your brain and then all of a sudden be able to use it when you're 18. So the whole process of childhood is supposed to provide all these opportunities for children to start developing their critical thinking. And this is why it's so important that children have the right to get together with their friends to form organizations and also to get information, because they have to be able to think freely for themselves. Is this the real truth or is this fake news? Especially now, because children are bombarded, they can get information from different sources. But if they don't know how to decide which one is real information and which is not, then they can get into trouble. And this is why it's all these rights, they're interlinked. And of course, it also comes with the right to rest and the right to be creative, the right to take part in cultural activities, because our brains, our bodies, we're all together. So we have to learn how to move. If you want to learn a sport, it's the same thing with the way you want to think. If you don't use your head, if you don't get information and try to process that, your brain's not going to work. So that's why I think it's so important that we really make it a policy for everyone to listen to children, whether it's your parents or the president of the country or the United Nations, for example.
That is actually one of the part I like most in the convention. The first one is to not just have children speaking, but also have the adults listening. I think that is so important. And the second one is, I remember it's article number 12. It says that the opinions of the children should be considered by their maturity, not by their age. I think that is so very important. And if they made it like a age limit or something, a lot of beautiful things we see nowadays, a lot of children with courage who are willing to stand up and speak for themselves, those things might not have happened. So I think that it's very important to to be able to consider everyone's differences and not to treat everyone the same, and not to consider that once you pass some certain age, you're certainly mature enough to make decisions. Yes.
Yes,
Thank
certainly. I
you.
mean, there's so many people, I think they still have to grow up, you know.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. And I've prepared a second question for today. It's about what does politics means to children rights, and how can we see politics from the perspective of children rights?
I think we have to connect it to the discussion that came earlier, because politics is about the use of the resources. Politics is about the different opinions of the people and who has the power to make the decisions. So, for example, when we talk about the quality of schools, for example, now under COVID, we know it's important to wash our hands, right? But many schools in the Philippines don't have adequate water just to run the toilets, for example. So if we talk about politics, now it's the responsibility of politicians, of local governments to make sure that all schools have water for their toilets and for washing hands. It's the same thing. Like, for example, I have foster daughters and they just got their school supplies from the school. But you'll notice that all the notebooks, even the USB and the bag, they all have the symbol of the local government and the name of the mayor. So that's how important politics is, because it makes a decision. Like the mayor has to make a decision. Is providing school supplies for children important or not? But of course, it's also another decision whether you spend money just to put your name on the notebooks, for example. But, like for example, now we talk about the problem of climate change. To tackle climate change, we have to have policies that will limit the emissions of carbon dioxide. And those decisions have to be made by the president, by the congressmen, the senators. And that's why this really has an effect on the lives of children. Children are not going to be able to vote, but children can make a stand about what is important to them. They can tell their parents, look, you have to check whether that politician who wants your vote next year in the elections, what is her position? What is his position about climate change? Are they going to give a raise to the salaries of the workers? Are they going to make workers work longer hours without additional pay, for example? Are there going to be enough buses to bring people to work or to school? So a lot of these decisions really affect people. And for example, for many children in my country, a lot of children don't have adequate housing. You know, they're all cramped into small rooms. They share a house with so many families. So the decision about providing good housing is in the politicians' hands. So that's why politics really involves children's rights. I mean, if we want to have good food, if we want to have health care, all of these need good decisions from our politicians. And that's
I
why we can't
totally
wait for you to turn to 18 before you understand this, because you have to really tell people, tell your peers, and tell your parents, look, you have to really have to vote wisely. You have to ask the right questions from the politicians.
I totally agree with that. In the society I grown up, many adults think that children rights are not related to politics, but I don't agree with that opinions. And a lot of other people thinks that children are not supposed to discuss or get involved in politics, and that leads them to avoid politics in the process of upholding children's rights. But actually, I think that children should definitely be included in the decision making progress, and that means that we're definitely going to be including in politics. And now also nowadays we live in a world where every decision we make and every action we take is interlinked to politics, thus that certain politics in every aspect would influence children's right, either positive or negative. Because of this, we should not avoid discussing politics due to our fear of causing negative impacts. Instead, I believe that we should find ways to minimize the negative impacts and to help protect children's right from getting harmed by politics conflicts.
Yes, I think you're completely right. I think the problem is that in the past and up to now, many people think that politics is bad or politicians are corrupt or power hungry or want to stay in power forever. And that's why we need children to get involved in politics, because we need a new brand of politicians. We need the new kind of politicians who are responsible, who are willing to give up power, pass on the power properly when their terms are ended, for example. So that's why we can't leave it the way it is now. We really have to change it for the better. And we're seeing this in many countries. We're seeing more women, more LGBTQ getting into politics and bringing the different uh, needs or issues of people to the powers that make that policy. So that's why it's important for us to get involved. We cannot leave politics uh, to the old politicians or the traditional politicians. We have to get that power back and give it back to the people.
Yes, and I also think that it is very important to show, especially as a children, it's very important to show that we are definitely interested in getting involved of those decision-making process, and we definitely want to be included, and we are willing to speak for ourselves. It's very important to show that we're willing to do this, so that others, adults, politicians, they will note someday they will notice us, and they will see that we have the ability and the wishes to be included in their process of making decision making, making those politics and things like that.
Yes,
Thank
Sophie,
you.
it's so important. But I have to warn you, though, you have to be brave. You have to be courageous, because a lot of politicians don't want to give up power that easily. But I think with your spirit and with the bravery of young people, their openness to new ideas, we can do this. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for such a powerful speech at the end of the 3 inspirational speeches and discussions that we have had today. I have seen questions in the Q&A function, and please abuse this function. That's the purpose of having it. Just as Ali said, Mrs. Amihana Bueva has played a great role for children in the region, and I could see also the comment of Shamella saying that she is the inspiration and mentor for her. I would very much like to ask Ali, because he is doing a great moderation, but he can't say much. But now I would like to ask him, how do you feel, Ali, about all the conversations before? And as Ali will speak, please allow me also to pose here a question that came into the chat. And I can imagine that both the child advisors, peer mentors, and especially the specialists would have a say on this. What do you think is the role of children in quality research on their rights issues, especially to inform policy and to make decisions here? First to Alif, and then please panelists who wants to contribute and answer the question, role of children in quality research for policy decisions.
Thanks to you for giving me opportunity to express my emotions, keeping aside the moderation. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation, very meaningful, and learned a lot from it. I really enjoyed everything's going great. And actually, what we planned was to aware the audience and make them assured to influence them to ask their questions and to have their inputs and to get them extra knowledge on child rights and child participation on this special day, which I think we have done really well till now. And I hope it goes on further like this till the end. Uh, but really glad to see all of us, and Ms. Amihan and Sophie has a great conversation, really inspiring. Just I will leave a question for them, which I would love to ask personally in order to the Q&A, that what is the role of civil society to ensure the child participation? If you please, you can give a insight on that.
Ali, are you asking me? Because I think it's
Yeah.
so essential. Yeah, I mean, in our country, for example, it was NGOs, civil society organizations that first really pushed the envelope, created space for children to come together. I remember my first job in children's rights, this is long before you were born, in 1989, was to organize a children's festival because we wanted to get children to express their ideas through different ways. Many children might not want to make a speech, for example, but they want to say their ideas in a poem. They want to paint, they want to sing, they want to have stage a play. And these are all ways in which children can really express their views. So this is why it's so crucial for children and for CSOs to really design the way they do their work, that from the beginning, when you do your work, you really make a space before you decide what your strategic plan is for your organization. You have to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask the children what they think your organization should be doing. And then we have to make sure that those ideas are really brought back to the organization, brought to the powers, brought to the Congress, brought to the Department of Social Welfare, the Department of Justice, because otherwise it's it's not enough to speak. You have to feel that your ideas have some weight. Not all of our ideas are going to be correct in the beginning, but it's when we listen to others that we find out, ah, yeah, that's a good idea. I can do that as well. Or maybe if we do it this way, we can do it even better. So that's why it's so important that as civil society organizations, we make it a point to really include children. And we have to tell our friends and the media, for example, For example, when it was talking about stories about children, don't show children when they're at their weakest, for example. Don't emphasize on the disability of children, for example. You have to show what the children are capable of doing. So we have to help change the way the world looks at children.
Thank you for the answer. I guess I have also got my answer, and the viewers would also have got their answer. Now, with the end of this, we will move to our Q&A session. Again, the viewers, the who is watching our discussion, the event, they can send their questions, which will be now answered. The question can be asked using the Q&A question. For now, I will hand over to my co-moderator to ask a question if she has received in the Q&A.
Yeah, so we have seen there is a question about the role of children in quality research, about their issues for influencing policies. And we are so privileged to have here experts in child participation in research. We have the peer mentors who have done research the whole last year on how COVID influenced their lives. And we have two young and new child advisors in the group. So we can have plenty of answers. If you allow me, I would turn first to the child advisors. What do you think about children doing research to influence policies? Tin, Sarmala, what is your opinion about this question?
Well, first of all, I believe that, child participation in these, in bringing about, children to talk about these things and everything else, and see their views on making these policies. It's very, important as us children. We definitely do have a different mindset from adults, and we think slightly differently, of course, and but at the same time, we still have ideas that we want to put out there, and that we would genuinely, many children would love adults to listen to them. And even though children are still at a growing age, still learning about their life and everything else, who they are, it's still better to grab their ideas and put them into policies and everything else.
Yes, I would also like to agree with Jamala and tell to her that it is important that children are involved in research and in decision making, because just like John said, we are still children, we still have young minds, and maybe our ideas that might be different from the others, then maybe we can incorporate them and find new ways that maybe nobody has ever thought, and it also teach us as younger people to research even in older times when on the other topics that are of much importance to us. So I also think that children, especially in decision making, should be heard, and especially if it's our topics, which we know the better than any older person, and especially in our rights, because we know what we need, and that we need maybe, well, I'm sure that many children would like to cooperate and to have a seat at the table, see what we want and what the older want, and what we can do on the mutual satisfaction.
Okay, so thanks for your active participation and answering the question. Now I have two questions, one for Shamila and the other one for Amrit. But I will first go towards Shamila. That is, the question is that what is the international standard for justice for children? So please, if you could address it.
Sorry, Ali, could you repeat that question? What is the
international standard to deal with justice with children? Like, what are the laws or what are the standards required to deal with justice with children?
Amit, I think that I'm not the best person to deal with that question. So I'm going to defer to, I'm not sure who on this panel, because I wasn't involved in the child justice. So maybe Januka could respond to that, because I'm not the expert. I'm sorry, Ali.
No problem. If we can't have anyone to answer it, the question can be emailed and we can answer it laterally. So, do anyone have answer for it? Okay, I think we should proceed from that question. The next question I had for Amrit is, what is the mechanism of budgeting in his own country? Child-friendly budgeting in his country.
Thank you, Ali, for the question. Such a long answer for this question, I believe. But I'll try to
Please
keep
keep
it very,
it
very
short.
short.
We have a short time.
Okay, I'll try to keep it very, very short. So yeah, about the child participation in budgeting and child participation process, there exists different kind of processes relevant in different parts of the world. Like each country have their own process of child participation in budgeting. Like Samila recently in the earlier talks, he mentioned that Brazil has its own kind of the process of budgeting for children. UK have its own, and for Nepal, it's its own. So, as I'm the one who is working as an activist here in Nepal, and I have some kind of experience in child participation in budgeting because I was there myself while preparing budget for the children. So I can keep my views and insight very generally in context of Nepal. So in Nepal, what do we have is like we have the a strategy known as child-friendly local government. So what is child-friendly local government? Child-friendly local government is ensuring UNCRC, which is at the United Nations, taking the United Nations UNCRC into the local level. How can each and every child living in the community get UNCRC? That is the main motto of child-friendly local governance. So, child-friendly local governance strategy was passed in Nepal in 2011 AD. So, what child-friendly local governance mostly act on is it works for child survival, child protection, child development, and child participation. So it has some indicators relating to child participation in budgeting. That is, children are compulsorily needed to be included in child participation in budgeting in an inclusive manner. Like not just the children who have an access to the access facility to go be in decision making, but each and every kind of children, like the children from underprivileged group, minority groups, children with disabilities, migrant children, refugee children, children identifying as LGBTQI community. So each kind of children need to be taken in account while preparing budget. So child clubs are one of the main factors here in Nepal, which contribute a lot for child participation in budgeting. There are different levels of child clubs here. Like the minimum level, let's say the lowest level of the child club is the child club starts from the school, and the highest level of the child clubs are the national level child clubs. So children from the child clubs of school level discuss within the school about what kind of agendas, what kind of proposals, what kind of things, what kind of issues need to be addressed by the government, by the policymakers, by the government officials, and what kind of things need to be added in the budgeting process. So in the same manner, it proceeds in the different levels. So I'll give an example. Taking an account of a district level. So in district level, child clubs from different municipality, government, councils from different places come to a single place, and then they decide a conference. In Nepali, it's also known as Bal Bhela. So in that conference, what do children do is the representative children bring their voices as a proposal. Like these are the needed talks of our, these are the needed issues, and these are the needed thing for us. Now, like government need to tackle these items for us. So we bring this proposal to you, government. Now you need to address this in your budgeting process. Like we bring that kind of proposal to the government, and all the government holders, civic society, and then government official, politician, everyone, every people are there in that conference, and they all contribute to our talk. Like in an intergenerational consultation way, we try to like bring up some great agenda that are greatly needed in the sector of child, and then those agendas are taken to the budget formulation committee, and then the budget are passed in those topics. So that is the practice of child participation in budgeting here in Nepal. But furthermore to this, what is also done is like children themselves
Ahmed,
also
Ahmed,
take part
sorry to
in the
cut you off.
yeah,
The
yeah.
time is short. Please conclude the answer.
Okay, sorry for taking a longer time, but yeah, that's the thing. Like the practice of child-friendly child participation in budgeting comes from the UNCRC, and the general comment on public budgeting by the UN Committee on the Rights of Child clearly states the involvement of child participatory public budgeting process. So not just in my practice, but it should be practiced in almost every country. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Amrit. One could really see you have a lot of experience in Nepal, and we do hope that in the future we can have similar conferences where you can share it at a broader scale. I have seen an answer of Jennifer to the question on child justice and justice, standard justice, and I would like to take this opportunity also to invite the panelists for the last reflections and comments before Ali will move to the closing point on the agenda. So Jennifer, please, if you could answer, if you could say it now as well, what you have wrote in the chat, and maybe emphasize something you wanted to emphasize, and then to have you opening the session of the last reflections. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to just affirm the question, and can I say what an exciting and stimulating and inspiring session this has been to be hearing from so many people about their views. I just very briefly, I've put a link in the chat that takes us to a call to action that is related to how we can realize justice for children in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, which we see as a really important mechanism that helps us to realize children's rights around the world. And I think when we talk about justice, there's lots of different definitions. You know, there's the really tight definition of what do the laws ensure you can have, and then there's sort of the moral definition of what's right. You know, what is just? How do I feel justice in my life? How do I feel listened to in my classroom when I feel something's happened that shouldn't have happened? You know, so I think justice is one of these really stretchy words. And so this, the call to action has quite a stretch in the understanding of justice, because we want to be really ambitious about how children around the world can experience justice in the whole range of aspects in their lives. And there are a number of references there that can, if people want to look a little bit more closely at what are some of the international standards. But I know there's not enough time for me to go into a long list of these things, so maybe that's just a good way to start. But can I just say thank you to everyone for such an inspiring and important day today. And I'll hand back to Raluca and Ali. Thank you again.
Thank you. I hope we have got the answer now. The last reflection and final question from Janoka. Short one and need a short answer, please. What are the challenges in ensuring child participation?
So yeah, thank you for your question. We obviously have lots of challenges regarding child participation. And I think one would be adult indifference, because people think that children don't have any experience, children don't know anything about what to do and what not to do. So they ignore the children's view regarding their problems themselves. And I think that is one of the major challenges that we are facing. And other things are like in decision making process, children are not being involved, and the implementation of child related problems, and so many things like discrimination discrimination for children regarding what education, health, and so many things. Though they are facing the problem, adults are not hearing. What happens is adults sometimes may not understand what children are facing through, what children are going through. So they ignore the fact that children are facing the problem that really needs to be addressed. And the other things are the practices, the policies that are regarding decision making plan formulation are very formal, very, it seems like they are very political, and so children don't understand the complex procedure in such. So children are being the that is being the issue for child participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now it's time for the last reflection from our panelists. Ms. Amihan, towards you for your last remarks.
Yeah, I just saw a question about politicians telling children who are hungry and poor that we can solve this by being resilient. Well, actually, resilient means being able to bounce back. So that means that we have to make sure that children have enough food. If they're going to bounce back, if they're going to have enough energy to do their schoolwork, to have the digital load, for example, that means that the adults, especially the government, has to make these resources available to children. Because you can't expect children to bounce back with an empty stomachs. No? So we have, that's a very important responsibility. I think it's so important that politicians don't pass the responsibility to somebody else when they're the ones who have the taxes, they're the ones who have the power to make decisions. So I think it's important that we bounce back, that we know that the problems are temporary and we can solve this, but it's important to take responsibility. And I think, and people are being told that, you know, you can survive without food, without making sure that you have food for them. I think that's very painful. And I think this is why the citizens are taking power as well. They're putting their resources together to put up community kitchens, community pantries, so that they can help the poor people have food for the day. It's not going to solve the problem, but at least we're going to survive. But we still have to go back to the politicians and say, look, the money has been with you. And now I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the situation in the Philippines. But I think for many other countries, we have to get our politicians to become more responsible.
Okay, time for last remarks from Ms. Shamila.
Thanks, Ali. Just to tag on to what Amian is saying is that we need politicians who are more responsible and politicians who are willing to listen to children, to have children's participation activities, create opportunities for children to participate in decision-making processes. The same with lawmakers in the legislature, that they create the opportunities, the spaces for children to influence the budget when the budget is being debated in Parliament. And so one of the things that I think, just coming back to a previous question on the role of children in research, that children are not only interviewees, but they are active participants in research, that they are able to mold questions that need to be asked and answered. And then maybe just a last point is that the issue of narratives are becoming very key in policy making, and children are key narrative shaping individuals. They come from communities that can shape narratives in policy making, in providing that evidence that we need when we're talking about evidence-based policy advocacy. And this is what we need, especially when we are talking about budgeting. Thank you very much. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful International Children's Day. Some children won't be able to participate, won't be able to enjoy it because of their circumstances, but I'm sure that there are children who are aware of it. And if you know of children who are not aware of it, let them know, inform them, including in your festivities, and just enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much for including me here.
Thanks for the wonderful words and giving us the time. Then, over to you for your final remarks.
Well, I think that's important. The big ideas have been made, and that once we link all those, everything that has been said, that we can truly create a better plan for the future where we can ensure the budgeting and to go along with the with child justice, we can build a platform and a system to improve that every child has equal, that it has the that has possibility to have equal needs and representation. And I also like to thank all of our all you, Ali, versus the moderator, and then all of our panelists for giving such important themes and topics, and for addressing the questions that really are a big question, a big problem to all of us and the child advisors and child activists all around the world. So thank you very much.
It's time for Zarmala's final remarks.
Yes, so entirely, this discussion has definitely enlightened most of us. We had learned a lot about, child justice, child participation in budgeting, and so many other topics were discussed here. So entirely, I'm sure this kind of shows how important these things are. And once again, this was definitely a very interesting, experience for me, at least, because it was my first time learning about these things. And yeah, everything was done very well. And yeah, once again, I would also like to say Happy International Children's Day.
Okay, Amrit, your remarks in short.
Thank you, Ali. So yeah, we really had a wonderful discussion today. I was able to learn many things new, and hope my insights were also thoughtful enough to contribute to something regarding child participation and child rights. And I always emphasize on two challenges, like we need to tackle this in every discussion. So I would like to add this up in this discussion too. So that is like, there are laws, policies, acts in United Nations in each countries, but those lacks its implementation. So why don't we all work for it? And along with this, we children strongly believe that we should have our key say in the decision making that affects our life, but we are often denied with this opportunity. So we all children should work for this from our place. So that will be my key message from today. And another thing is like, thank you COVID-19 for organizing such a wonderful child festival. And once again, happy International Children's Day. Thank you.
Well, really glad to have all you here. Really awesome till now. Sophie, your remarks, please.
Thank you everyone for being here. Every word from every person is so interesting. I've been taking notes, and every words, it really inspires me. And I think this is something that the experience and the thought, this is something that I want this world to pass it on. And I hope that everyone, no matter what you're doing right now, just keep doing it, keep being yourself, and together I think we can make a better future for every child.
Well, really well pointed by Sophie that we can make a better future for child collectively. Now, at the last stage of our session, as we have all come to the concluding of our event, our first session of the event almost, I will introduce Ms. Laura White for the final remarks and to have a concluding remarks for you. But before that, a short, brief intro of her. Laura Wright is a professional practitioner and research consultant with experience in children's rights, play, children's meaningful participation, child protection, and psychological well-being in development and humanitarian contexts. She is member of International Institute for Child Rights and Development Leadership Team and PhD researcher at the University of Edinburgh. Over to you, Ms. Laura.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for such an amazing and inspiring start to International Children's Day and this brilliant Child Rights Festival. It's been wonderful to hear the intergenerational dialogue and the wisdom and ideas for action and positive change that we can take forward. I think just to give everyone, as we've been sitting and inspired, a moment to give a big stretch and move around and I'll shake out all these brilliant ideas. And then what we're really keen to do is, as Sophie so beautifully said, every word has been inspiring. And we're really interested in hearing what has inspired you today. So I'll put a Padlet link in the chat. And please, as we're transitioning to our next session, which will be a creative format, add either your words or you can add a picture, a song, a poem, anything that kind of expresses how you feel from today's session so far. And this will be open throughout the day, so you can add your thoughts throughout the whole day. And we really hope to have a beautiful collage of moments of inspiration to take us forward, and also as we transition towards our call to action. So please add throughout. Another exciting piece that we do have coming up is a digital library. And this is a great space where we'll have all sorts of resources, YouTube videos, similar to some of the intergenerational dialogue that you've heard today, but short clips and also clips of parts of our training that have been taking place in partnership with the mentors and mentees, many of these great young people and adults present here. So you'll be able to check out and explore. So we'll pop that YouTube link in the chat and feel free to share ideas, things that you'd like to see there as well. Thank you everyone so much. It's been such a pleasure to listen and learn, and I hope everyone who's joining us online will leave feeling enthused for the day and join in some of the future sessions as well.
So with it, our first session of the day has come an end. We all will see you later in the next session of today's event. But before winding up, I will say a few words that I'm cordially thanks to you all for giving us your precious time, having us you all, and for answering the difficult questions, for giving the positive message, and at last, teamwork is the dream work, and we all worked like a team, and we answered as a team. It was really encouraging and exciting for me to work with you all. That's all. We will have a short break, and after that, we will see you soon to my co-moderator.
Thank you so much, Ali. We will have now 1 hour break, so we are happy to see everybody using the same link in the next session. Thank you, everyone, and a happy International Children's Rights Day. Thank you.
Christian, if you want to add something.
That's everything. See everyone in an hour. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day. See you later.